Hello and welcome to another edition of Belfry Football's Between the Goalposts. We finally got the man that everybody's been saying, hey, this is who you got to get. This is who you got to get. We're going to welcome Irvin Smith here tonight. All-State football player, 1957, graduated in 1958. Irvin, we're glad to have you here tonight. I'm telling you, because you and I got a lot of old school in us,
Right.
and these old stories. So we want to get some of these old stories on the air. And I know everything's going to be said here tonight will be the absolute truth. So don't you dare doubt anything that's said.
Okay.
I want to know first, because my dad, when he played here, played before you. He'd always tell me stories when you went to Lynch and played. You went to Jenkins and played. And he would tell me that you didn't need a whole football field. You could play it in a bathroom, the way he played it. So tell me what it was like in those games.
Well, it was like Albert was telling you. It was closed in. A lot of play in those days was tackle to tackle. Everything was hard nosed. And Coach, and I'm sure Albert, your dad told you this. There was no face mask in those days, and we finally got a bar, a little small bar, my junior year in high school. But since he told you about, we related about where he got hit that time in the back. We were playing at Jenkins my junior year or my sophomore year, and I had a very severely broken nose because where everything was tackle to tackle. And I was in those days I played what they call closed end, but now known as a tight end. So you had to be right in there for those guys inside blocking. Everything was power. And of course the game now is much more finesse simply because we have better athletes this day and age, faster. And in the passing game, which we threw the ball quite a bit ourselves, we threw more than what the average team in those days. But everything from tackle to tackle, hard-nosed football, closed in like your dad said, you were in a small box. And sometimes you'd be on one end of the field and you'd be there for the whole half,
Yeah.
So that's the big difference now.
Right. And now I want you to tell this story that we've talked about. He actually started playing in grade school, like so many people do, now in the Pond Creek area. But tell us about your grade school experience playing football, what it was like.
Listen, that prepared me for high school football, and I relate to you. I've told you earlier. The football coach we had at Coburn Grade School, name was Doc Runyons. He was the principal of a little two-room grade school. And he helped organize a grade school league. It only had 4 teams, 4 grade schools in it, because most of the grade schools wouldn't participate because of the violence of the game. That we played a full seasons. I played my 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th grade, or 5th, years, and no helmets and no shoulder pads. And none of the teams had equipment. And I think that really prepared us for the high school. And I could tell you, and I told you earlier, that when I got to Belfry as an 8th grader, I thought that was pretty easy to be able to put a helmet on, and even though they were still flimsy back in those days. And but that was quite an experience. Of course, coaches couldn't get by with that this day and age.
Oh, yes,
with no pads and no helmets. And it's a wonder some of us didn't get killed, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of tough guys, a lot of tough kids,
What's probably your favorite game you ever played in as a Pirate?
Well, I'll have to say the favorite game. I don't want to get into individual things. We had Ethan Wolford, who was a great football player here. He plays college football right now. He asked me just not long ago. He said, "Well, you guys didn't throw the ball very much, did you?" But we did. Like I said, we probably threw the ball a lot more than the average team in those days.
I always heard that.
But my favorite game was at Elkhorn City. I had, can I say this?
You go ahead and say it.
I had 9 receptions and 3 touchdowns. And that is really a memorial. I mean, let's face it, especially in those days, you didn't hear of a closed in catching that many passes.
Right.
But that was the game that sticks out in my mind. Of course, later on, some of the guys said, well, they were weak in the secondary. So
it don't matter. A reception's a reception and a touchdown's a touchdown, right?
But I had 9 receptions and 3 touchdowns in that game.
Do you realize that I don't even remember anybody since I've been associated with it, here at Belfry has had 9 receptions and 3 touchdowns in one game. So that's remarkable. That's unbelievable.
Well, that year, by the way, all the quarterbacks that I played with are gone now. I played with Coach Ron May. He was a quarterback when I was a sophomore, and when I was playing JV as an 8th grader. And I started as a freshman. He was our quarterback. And then we had Arnold Bevins, who passed away here a couple months ago. Probably one of the best baseball pitchers ever been at Belfry High School, but he had a tremendous arm. And the reason I give him credit, want to bring his name up, I don't care, you could be in triple or double coverage, he'd bring that ball in. You better catch it. He was a typical quarterback. He slumped shouldered, he looked like Johnny Unitas, and he acted like Unitas. If you dropped that ball, he would be in your face.
Yeah, I like that.
So
That's right.
that was one of the things that, really stuck out in my mind. Played with some good quarterbacks, I was lucky. I played, and then see my senior year was Bobby Hamlin, who had several records at Marshall at one time.
Right.
So I was one of these lucky guys. When I got to Belfry, had some good quarterbacks.
I think you agree. Those guys you played with, you look back, probably the best friends you ever had in your life?
Like brothers. Coach, in the last few years, I've been lucky to present this award in Jim Stoltz's name,
Yes.
engineer. He was chief ground engineer on the space program. Very, very intelligent man. He and I were in the same homeroom 4 years together. We shared the same locker 4 years, and we were co-captains our senior year. Tremendous football player, and of course he passed away a couple years ago, and that was very hard. It was like losing a brother or sister, and we were very close, and we were just like brothers, and all of us. But I really had a great relationship with Jim. Matter of fact, he spent about 30 years in the space program as a chief ground engineer.
There's always been, especially I know since I've been here, there's always been a special bond between this football team and Pond Creek.
Yeah, that goes back. My wife used to tell me this all along. We played all of our home games in those days at Wimpson. And prior to my time there, when your dad was playing, they played all their home games at Red Robin Baseball Park.
Right.
Well, the night that we opened up the season, the first year, my senior year is the first year we played in Fairfield Stadium. I'll never forget that crowd. And it was almost like an atmosphere of a big-time college game. And my wife, I was 6 years older than her. She was an 8th grader. She says really her dad and mom were not great football fans, but they were at that game because that was the Belfry Pirates in their new stadium. And I'll never forget, one thing that sticks out in my mind, and I mentioned this not long ago on Facebook, I'll never forget, we would always get ready all those other years. We'd get dressed, catch a school bus to Lefty Hamilton. The first game that night, we could look out the window. We were getting dressed down in the basement. Our old dressing room was down in the basement.
Yes.
There. You could see these lights already on. And it gives me cold chills now
Absolutely.
just talking
Yes.
about this.
Right.
And when we came down that hallway, Coach, you were there a lot of
Oh,
years.
I know.
Those cleats, I can still to this day, I can hear those
Hear 'em.
cleats going. And it was something. And then when we stepped out, this old gate would open up at the area where the band room was later built.
Absolutely.
When we stepped through that gate, in that crowd, I've never seen a crowd in my life like that. And they just about tore that place down. And it was because Belfry High School and Pond Creek, I guarantee there weren't many people home that night.
Right.
But even my wife said her dad, who definitely didn't like football, was on his feet cheering when we come out on the field, So that's the type of relationship Belfry Pirates has had with Pond Creek.
I had an old Pond Creeker that moved away from here, ran into him, and he once told me, he said, I don't know what it is, but on Friday nights in the fall, about 7 o'clock, he says, my palms start itching.
Yeah.
And they start sweating because I know the boys are playing somewhere.
Yeah. It was, I'll never forget, I was in Germany when the first time we ever beat Wimpson. And to be honest about it, it was pretty iffy times at that time. You can check history books. We were pretty close to getting into World War III at that time.
Right.
And we were on alert, on high alert. And I was in this area and had mail call. and Myrna Ray Ruford, L.R. Ruford's wife. L.R. and I were first cousins, and L.R. was a good fullback at Belfry in his time. But anyway, I got this newspaper all rolled up, mail call. Had all these old hard-nosed military guys there because we thought we was getting ready to go into war anytime. And I opened up that paper, and I scared half the people to death. I hollered, you could have heard me hollering all over Germany. Wimpson, big headlines, Pirates beat Wimpson with the Wolfpack for the first time in history. So it
means something, doesn't
it?
it?
Just like that fella said,
Yeah.
I get cold chills.
And you that's the great thing about it. If you've been part of this program, and I have this term that says, well, they get it. I can't define what it is, but now your hair standing up on your arm and stuff, that's part of you getting it. It means something, doesn't it? Yeah. And something else, we can lay this. We're going to lay this myth, fable, whatever it is you want. We're going to lay that to rest tonight. When you first started playing at Belfry High School, tell everybody what your school colors were.
Maroon and white. Coach Irvin Wilson, who was a great football player at Belfry for the great team that John Morkel had.
Yes.
Maybe one of the best. There was no classifications in those days. That particular team produced 7 players that played college football. But Irvin Wilson was a great player, but he was a great player at Marshall. So when he came back, for some reason, he kept thinking about Winston's maroon and white, Pike was maroon and white, and he says, we're going to get our own identity. It didn't matter we'd been maroon and white since 1924. He wanted our own identity. So that's when he changed it. He changed it to red and white.
Red and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a hard sell too. A lot of people didn't go over that.
Oh yes, that's. I've always heard that. Well, it used to be maroon and white.
Yeah.
They changed it because maroon would fade and whatever. And so now you've got the real deal
Coach
here.
Irvin Wilson. Matter of fact, let me relate this much about. He came back to Belfry to coach. He was an outstanding football player, lineman. His younger brother Cullen's one that was a great lineman at UK. But also Coach Irvin Wilson was 3-year starter at Marshall. His last year, he was honorable mention All-American. He made All-Mid-American Conference 2 years. And he was also an outstanding wrestler down there. But when he had several jobs, and the first job he took when he got out of Marshall, he came back home. He wanted to be a Pirate again.
Yeah. There's just something about the call to come back. This place is just a little different.
It's different. It's different. Well, this is our sport. This is our school.
Yes.
And I have to tell you this. After I retired, I went to work 20 years. I retired 20 years ago from a bank, and I went to work at the Walmart. And I told these people in church about this last Sunday. The boss was going to give me off Saturday and Sunday. And I said, no, give me off Sunday and Friday. And the boss looked at me real funny. They never had somebody turn down 2 days straight.
Right.
He says, why in the world, or she says, why in the world would you want off Sunday and Friday nights, or Fridays? I said, well, Sunday's for church. Friday nights for Belfry football, and that's how I'm off on Friday.
Yeah, faith, family, and football. That's sort of the saying around here,
Yeah.
And it really rings true in this community.
And these guys, there's something special. There's something special. We see all these kids, and I have a lot of relatives that come through a long time after I did, and like Ethan's a double cousin.
Right.
And you live and die with these boys.
Yeah.
And it gets me mad. I have to tell you right now, and I'll look right in the camera when somebody says something negative about our school or football and our coaches. I ask them when they bring up, you're not that many people that's going to question what we do here, but you have one or two.
Oh yes.
And I'll hold my fingers up and I'll say, count the championship rings I got on my fingers.
Must be doing something right.
Something right. That's what I tell them. I said, we got 8 of them up here Pirate land.
Yeah. Oh, we want to end this segment. We're going to divide this into. When I got you, I knew couldn't do it all in one show. I sort of want to do this first part now about your playing days and stuff. And I want you. Let's end this part with this. What was the lessons you learned with that old one piece of a bar going across and a flimsy helmet and finally a red and white jersey? What was the lessons you learned that still stick with you today?
I tell you the lesson I learned, and I think many walks of life for me, my Christian life, my everyday life working, don't quit. Don't quit. Now I have to admit, when I was playing football for Belfry, there was sometimes I'd run into people just more out physical me, and I can still recall some of their names, but I wouldn't quit. I can recall games where I got whipped, whipped.
Yes.
But also when it's over with, you hate maybe the outcome even, but you have satisfaction. You didn't quit. You kept going. And I think that served me while I was in the military. It served me in my life working when I was with the bank all those years. And I realized I'm not one of these guys. And when I was at the bank, I used to tell Ron May all the time, I know I'm not the smartest guy around, but I won't quit. I won't quit. And I learned that from Belfry football.
Absolutely.
I sure did.
Yes, something I always used to tell the kids that was under me that I coach. I'd say, you may not be the biggest, you may not be the fastest, you may not be the strongest. You're going, on Friday nights, you're going to come up against people like that. But the one thing you do control is you can outwork somebody.
Outwork them.
You can outwork.
Well, can I relate this before we cut this segment off?
Yes.
Larry Keenan and I are real good friends. Preacher,
Yes.
Larry was a running back at Pikeville when I was playing at Belfry. And the first game was there played on Irvin Stadium. We played Pikeville. And Larry put this on Facebook the other day, and I felt good about this. Which, we beat them pretty good first game they were playing.
Oh, that's good. That's music to my ears.
And but Larry says, one thing he remembered about me, some people put some stuff on Facebook. He said, I remember this guy kept coming after me all night long. I think Larry was playing linebackers, well, running back. And he says, I remember Ireland just kept coming after me. And I don't want to brag and say anything.
It's okay. Go ahead.
But, when he said that, since 1958 or 57, it made me feel good.
You want that here? That's Pirate Pride.
Pirate Pride.
Pirate Pride, yeah. And right there, we're going to end it tonight, but we're coming back with the second half of this interview. There's just so much. If there ever was a historian of Belfry football, you're looking at him. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back soon.